恭敬大德圣听，为此法会，及一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死离苦得乐，殊证无生。Build a Shankar with great virtue, our love, compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings. Please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo Saranto Suchetoye Allahadi San Miao San Buddha Che. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, slanting life, Medicine Master Buddha. Namo, quelling disasters, slanting life, Medicine Master Buddha. Namo, quelling disasters, slanting life, Medicine Master Buddha. Namo, quelling disasters, lending 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 life, Medicine Master Buddha. Medicine Master does come one. 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 Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Realm Master, and all good knowing advisors, Amitabha, welcome back. Okay, today we have quite a few things to go through. Okay, we also have Isabella's question from last week about killing. For example, if you have to kill in self-defense, for such a situation, does it break the precepts? And does anyone else has any question? You want to bring it up now? You know, type it into the chat box. Anyone? Is Ron here with us? No, Ron is not. Okay, Ron usually pretty reliable with a question. Or Alec, both of them are not here. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we are going to continue looking at cause and effect, and today we have the cause and effect of consuming intoxicants, and that's a long one because usually the Buddha gives 10 cause and effects of doing something. It comes in a set of 10. But for intoxicants, there's 36. 36 reasons why you should not consume intoxicants. And then we're going to go into the making of offerings. There are different ways of making offerings. For example, if you sweep at a Tathagata stupa or at a monastery, what will you get? Then if you offer a parasol, which is like an umbrella, what do you get as well? Then uh, after that, you're going to how you say uh, not a deep dive, but we're going to look into what does it mean when it says to plant good roots. Because when we make wholesome offerings, we are planting good roots. But from a Mahayana perspective, what does planting good roots mean? And then we go back into all the different benefits from making offerings. For example, what happens if you offer a bell to the Buddha, to the Buddha stupa or to a monastery? What happens if you offer garments or clothes? You offer a flag, things that you wouldn't normally think of offering, or you offer a flower. Flower is pretty common. A lot of people offer flowers, and then not just flowers, but then garlands as well. And then we're going to look at uh, Isabella's question, which is about precepts of, or specifically the first precept against harming or killing. And that one, I have a very long story I want to share. So I have to make sure I allocate enough time for that. All right. So now let's go and look at intoxicants. So the Buddha says there are 36 negative consequences with intoxicants, such as, okay, your wealth will dissipate, and then so this doesn't you might ask, there are some people in this life, like I have some personal friends who are extremely wealthy. They are my college mates, but they also drink a lot, you know and you might wonder, how come uh, it doesn't, what the Buddha says and what you see in real life doesn't correlate. Well, it's not one to one. It doesn't mean you do this now, you're going to get this in this lifetime. It could happen in a different lifetime, because our karmic seeds, the karmic seeds that we plant, requires the right conditions for them to come into fruition. Okay, so it's not necessarily within a single lifetime. Okay, but if you drink, okay, or you get uh, uh, to excessive, okay, you keep on accumulating seeds of excessive being involved with intoxicants, then you are bound to experience one of this or all of this 36, depending on what happens in future lives. Okay, so you will lose your wealth, and then you will lose faith in the triple jewel. Okay, why? Because you already are not practicing according to the Buddha's instructions or the Buddha's advice. You experience quarrels and disputes, and that you can kind of see for people who drink and then they get drunk, and they get involved in quarrels and disputes. Number four, you don't feel embarrassed, or you don't have a guilty conscience. You disgrace yourself. Your knowledge deteriorates. Previously unaccumulated happiness will not be accumulated in the future. Okay, you have to make sense of that yourself. All right. Once happiness will diminish and eventually disappear completely. Um, if you want to know exactly what that means, you drink until you get drunk. In between, you get happy when you're drunk, or when you pass out. Of course, this is not what it means, but you know. Number nine, you will reveal secrets. Okay, your tongue will become loose. Number 10, you neglect one's duties, you become feeble and sick, or your health is affected, you become a source of suffering for others. Okay, that means you give people trouble. You will not honor your parents. You will not honor those who have entered the path of liberation. You will not honor Brahmins, people of good conduct. You will not show respect and reverence for those of noble birth. You will not venerate the Buddha, the triple jewel, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. Instead, what will happen is you start to respect your friends who have bad behavior, immoral behavior, and then you completely abandon and even dislike virtuous friends, and you will lack a conscience, and then you will not be afraid of being embarrassed. You will neglect your appearance, and you will be heedless with regard to sexual misconduct. You will be considered unattractive by many beings, okay, not just humans, but many beings. People will despise you, and you will abandon noble families, relatives, and fellow clansmen. You will embrace that which is not the true Dharma. Why? Because you lack wisdom. You will completely abandon the true Dharma. The respected ones will turn away from you in disgust. Um, and no, not and then one will be far away from Nirvana. Then you will not obtain new possessions. And then you ponder how to get drunk. You just think about getting drunk or getting drugs, and then you make yourself, you will create ignoble mistakes in many ways, and then upon your death, you will fall. You will fall into lower realms and lack wisdom, because that's the path you consciously choose when you are in full control of your faculties. Okay, so that's intoxicants. Intoxicants covers a wide gamut, um, and it includes cigarettes as well, although people might say cigarettes does not affect the mind like alcohol or drugs do, but cigarettes is included because you create a dependency or habit that you cannot break when it comes to cigarettes. Okay, now we go to the good things. All right, if any of you has ever swept at the Tathagata's stupa, or a place where the relics of the Buddha is kept, or at a monastery, okay, guess what? Your body will be pleasing, your body will be beautiful, people will gain pleasure from looking at you. Why? Because of the first two. And then you will have a pleasant voice, and then your attachment, hatred, and ignorance will diminish. Okay. And then when you walk on a path, there will be no grass, gravel, or pebbles. In other words, your path will be smooth. Okay, both literally and then metaphorically. That means your practice. As you practice, everything will be smooth. You'll be born into a noble family. That means you just your name alone will, your family's reputation will bring you respect. You will have great prosperity. You will be reborn in the heaven, and not only that, you can quickly attain nirvana. Okay, and then what happens if you offer a parasol? Now this happens sometimes, like when Shufu visited, I think came to Asia, other places, people would bring a parasol and shake Shufu. Yeah, and so what would happen if you offer a parasol at the Tathagata's stupa? You will be a parasol for the world. In other words, you'll be a support for the world. You will benefit the world. Yeah, that's a really good thing to be able to do. Your body will never be affected by heat, by sun. I think this heat is sunlight heat. And then your mind will not be distressed. And then whatever intentions you have, you'll be able to carry it out. And then one will do and accumulate actions that lead to become a sovereign. I think I'm not sure where's the rest of this. That means you can become a leader. Yeah, I don't have the rest of the. I'm not sure what happened. Sovereign usually in the sutras it means a leader. And then number 6, you obtain the empire of a wheel-turning monarch. And then number 7, okay, wheel-turning monarch is someone that unites the 4 continents, usually. There are different levels of wheel-turning monarchs or wheel-turning kings. They call it Chakrawati, something like that in Pali. Chakra means wheel, and then the rest means king. So you empire of a wheel-turning monarch or king means your empire will be vast. It means everyone under you listen to you, and you how you say, you rule, okay, not through might or power or oppression, but you rule through loving kindness and compassion. So it is said that when you become a wheel-turning king, what happens is you have the 7 treasures of a wheel-turning king, and the 7 treasures, some of them allow you to travel. In other countries, when you travel to other continents or other countries, when the other rulers see you and they get to know you, they willingly submit to your rule. That's how you conquer them, because they understand that this wheel-turning king is so just, is so fair, and knows how to take care of the people under his kingdom or empire, that it will be for the better of everyone in the country if they were to, if the ruler willingly subjects himself to the wheel-turning king. That's how you obtain the empire. Yeah. So number 7, one will become a powerful notability and object of aspiration. That means people look up to you and you can inspire people. You will have great prosperity, power, and possessions. You will be reborn in the heaven, at least, or you will quickly attain nirvana. Okay. Now, all right. What we're going to do is, because the rest of the slides are about making offerings and getting the benefits of the offerings, and as usual, it's not that there are different layers of understanding to what it means to making offerings. So I wanted to share with you what Nagarjuna has to say in his Shastra or commentary on the Mahaprajna Paramita Sutra, which is really long. I think there's how many, 10,000 lines or something to the Mahaprajna, the great sutra on Prajna. Anyway, this is what he says. He says, roots of goods, also known as kusula mala. What is that? He says it means one's cumulative meritorious deeds. That means as you accumulate merit. Okay. So it says there are 3 roots of good. That means 3 types of merit that you can accumulate. Number 1, the absence of desire or renunciation. Number 2, the absence of hatred, which means loving kindness and compassion. Number 3, the absence of delusion, meaning wisdom, no ignorance. Okay, now, if you all remember, okay, before I've shared with you all, there's a particular sutra where the Buddha explains the 4 kinds of karma. You remember that, right? What are the 4 kinds of karma? Bright karma, which is when you plant wholesome seeds and the seeds fruition, it makes you happy. All right. Then there's dark karma, which is the opposite. You plant unwholesome seeds of karma, and then when the conditions ripen and the karma seed fruit bears fruit, you don't like it. You don't want it at all. It makes you suffer, it makes you sad, makes you unhappy. You don't wish it on yourself or anyone. And then there's the mixed karma, which is both bright and dark. That means good within the bad and bad within the good. Okay. Then the 4th one is where merit is made. The first one, bright karma, is where blessings are created. Okay, bright karma. But the 4th one is known as neither dark nor bright, or neither bright nor dark. Why? Why is it neither bright nor dark karma? Because the first 3 types of karma leads you back to rebirth. So even blessings leads you back to rebirth, just that it gives you a better, when it fruits, when bright karma happens to you, you get a more positive experience of your life. But neither bright nor dark karma is merit, because it takes you out of the rounds of rebirth. Okay, it takes you out of samsara. So the Buddha said, what is neither bright nor dark karma? Buddha said, the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, if you walk the Noble Eightfold Path, you are planting seeds of merit. And specifically, if you want to go into more detail, it is right intention of the Noble Eightfold Path. So what is right intention? Okay, anyone remember what makes right intention? Anyone? most people, when you listen, is 1 year in, 1 year out. Unless you process it and you think about it for the entire uh, week, it's not going to stay in you. Anyone want to try? What are the 3 things that make up merit and the right intention? What? This is supposed to be very, very basic. I think this is going to be the 4th or 5th time I'm telling you
Fasher,
all. Yes,
good morning, Fasher.
good morning.
Right
Good evening.
intention, I can only guess, is, for example, like, you know, something is wrong, but you still go ahead and do it the right way, I guess. Is that the right intention?
Good try, Saha, good try, but it's not the answer I'm looking for. But very good try. Yeah. Because it's very specific. The way right intention is described is very, very specific. Okay, Mudita says, avoid evil, do good, purify the mind. Uh, Again, yeah, you're not wrong, but it's not the specific answer that I've shared with you all countless times. Okay, I really shared with you all countless times because why? Because it's really important to know. Okay, all right, I won't torture you all. Okay, what makes up right intention? Okay, it's very, very important that you all remember this. Why? Because as you go about during your day, you are going to make certain decisions in your life. Okay, some of these decisions will involve you making blessings. Some may not. Okay, but the intent behind your decisions will determine if your blessings also become merit or your mundane decisions can turn into merit as well. Okay, so Tan says wholesome mental state. Yes, but you have to be specific about wholesome mental state. Then Mudita says right view. No, right view is right view, and then there's right intention, which is the second of the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, but I'm very happy you all are trying to answer. Okay, number 1, renunciation. Okay, that means usually is also translated as giving. So when you give things away, like your time, it can be money, it can be something you like, it can be something to help someone, it can be tissue paper, even. Okay, loving. Okay, Tan says loving kindness. Yes, loving kindness is number 2. Okay, number 1 is renunciation. All right. So in anything that you do, you remind yourself that you want to have less attachments. Okay, or you want to see through your attachments. All right. So it can be acts of generosity, um, anything that you remind yourself of your attachments and you wish to let go more. All right. So that's number 1. Number 2 is loving kindness. It means you do it not just to make yourself happy, but to make other people happy as well. It means they are all the intent. All right, it can be a thought. It doesn't need to be an action, it can be a thought. All right, so for example, you get yourself some coffee to wake up and then you make a vow and say, oh, I wish that all beings can always be uh, clear-minded and free of drowsiness, so whatever they hear in the sutras they can remember, although they have been told 4 or 5 times. Okay, like right intention. All right, okay, so number 1 is renunciation, number 2 is loving kindness, number 3 is compassion. All right, if you have loving kindness, compassion will naturally follow if people are suffering. Okay, so you do something wholesome to help people reduce their suffering. Okay, it can be a thought as well. All right, so Mudita says metta, karuna, mudita, upeka. You are half right, only the first 2. Okay, metta and karuna, mudita and upeka, no, not under right intention. Okay, so right intention, 3 things. All right, renunciation, loving kindness, and compassion. Now, if you look at your screen, okay, the Mahayana version is slightly different. You also have renunciation, you also have loving kindness and compassion, but you also have wisdom. All right, absence of delusion. Okay, all right, now coming back to our slide. Nagarjuna says, all the good dharmas derive their birth and their increase from the 3 roots of good. just as plants, trees, grasses, and bushes derive their rising and growth from their roots. This is why they are called roots of good. Okay, so if any of you are thinking, your screen, absence of delusion, right? Number 3, you won't be wrong. You will be absolutely right to incorporate the rest of the Noble Eightfold Path into number 3. All right. So you can look at 1, 2, 3 as basically walking the Noble Eightfold Path. So it aligns perfectly with the sutra that I told you earlier, where the Buddha talks about the 4 kinds of karma. Although that is a Theravada sutta, is found in the Pali canon. It's also found in the Mahayana canon, but it's categorized as a Theravada sutta. You can see that even from a Mahayana perspective, they are perfectly aligned. Okay, all right. Now, moving on. So Nagarjuna says, here by roots of good. Okay, you know, Shupa always says you have good roots, means you have good roots. Okay, it means, they say, Nagarjuna says the Prashna Paramita Sutra means not the roots of good themselves. Okay, roots of good is kind of a weird translation. Not the good roots themselves, but rather things, or the things to be offered, which are the roots, which are the good roots. I'm going to just pronounce it as good roots from now on, for causes and conditions. For example, flowers, perfumes, lamps, and also spiritual offerings such as the observance of morality, which is holding the precepts, the recitation of mantras and sutras, and etc. Okay, so here Nagarjuna points to the good roots as the actual objects that are offered. So he says, why is that? He says, well, perfumes and flowers, for example, are morally indeterminate. All right, that means they are neutral. They must be offered with a good intention to really be good roots. Okay, so you offer these things. These are very good things. And now in Mahayana Sutras, we also know that they represent other things. For example, the purification of our senses, for example. All right, but Nagarjuna says the intent behind them is very important for them to. So you can't just offer flowers. Okay, when you offer flowers, your heart or your intent has to match the flowers. Okay, so the flowers is a symbol. Flowers by itself, morally indeterminate means they're neutral. Okay, you just absentmindedly place a flower there and your heart is neutral, your heart doesn't have any intention, well, you are not accumulating good roots. Okay, so to accumulate good roots, your heart has to have what? Okay, let me go back one slide. Have these 3. Okay, thoughts of renunciation, thoughts of loving kindness and compassion, and wisdom. And that comes from walking the Noble Eightfold Path. All right. Okay, now going back to the next slide. So Nagarjuna says, in itself, the gift is not meritorious. So the efficacy doesn't lie in the gift. It lies in what the gift represents, which has to be reflected in your heart. So you have to understand the meaning behind the gift, or create the meaning behind the gift. All right. So it says, it is only when it destroys avarice and opens the door to the good dharmas that it is a root of good and qualifies as meritorious. Okay, what is avarice? Avarice is it's related to hatred. Okay, and the results of, if you have avarice, you create mental discomfort and unhappiness for yourself. It is also described as someone who is unable to see other people enjoy good fortune. So because you are attached to objects, when other people get objects, or they have good fortune, a lot of money, they have a nice big house, nice big car, and you are unable to get those things, it makes you very unhappy. Okay, that's avarice. So it's a combination of greed as well as hatred. Then Nagarjuna says, he said, thus the needle guides the thread. Thread here means sutra. and sews the garment, but the sewing is not the needle. Here, the Prajnaparamita Sutra is speaking about a single good root, okay? A single good root, like one flower, one perfume, one lamp, a single ceremony, or you recite the sutra once, or you observe the precept once, like you be vegetarian for one day, or you practice meditation once, okay? He says, taken one by one, these material offerings and these spiritual offerings are planted in the Buddha field. So good roots has to be accumulated. Just don't think you just do it one time and that's it. You have to continue doing it. All right? Okay. Now, he goes on to say there are three things present in the highest of the great merits. All right? The intention of the donor, the thing that is given, and the person or the field of merit, the recipient of the gift. Okay? He says all three are excellent. Finally, in the mind of the Prajna Paramita, the gift free of any attachment in regard to donor, the thing given, and the recipient wins a great fruit of ripening. Who can do that? Bodhisattvas. When a bodhisattva gives, in the bodhisattva's mind, there's no giver, there's no gift, and there's no recipient. Okay? Because the bodhisattva gives based on emptiness. Absolutely no attachment. It's not that the bodhisattva is unaware of what is given or doesn't know who he gives to, like he sees a crowd and just throws up money and doesn't know who receives the money. No, that's not what it means. Okay? It means that the bodhisattva does not dwell on the giving. It's not attached at all. Whatever you want, the bodhisattva, if able to give, will give. All right? Now, having said that, okay, how can we give to the extent that we can come very close or maybe even match the bodhisattva's giving? All right? It can happen when giving becomes a habit. You give so often that it's part of your makeup, okay, your personality, and you give and give and give until you don't think about giving anymore. It becomes spontaneous. It's a habit. Then, yeah, there can be some really special moments in your life when you give or you help someone or you give a compliment and you even forget that you have done it. Why? Because it's spontaneous. It's not calculated. There's no, as you minimize the self that is involved, there's no calculating of what can I get out of this, or you just give it a very pure heart. Okay, but that can only happen if you um, learn to give all the time. Okay. So Nagarjuna says the gift made in view of nirvana also obtains a great retribution or a great result. So in other words, when you give, what's your intention? If your intention is nirvana, then you would, because there's a great intent, you get a great result. And the gift made with the feeling of great compassion to save all beings also obtains a great retribution. Okay. Now, what is great compassion compared to normal compassion? Okay. We start with loving kindness because without loving kindness, you can't have proper compassion. Loving kindness is when you can wish for beings to be happy. All right. And it's a skill. It's a mental skill that you have to develop so you can expand loving kindness to encompass more and more people. But if you choose where it is natural to have loving kindness, it will be those who are important to you, those whose happiness is important to you. Now, when these people encounter suffering, compassion will naturally arise. Why? Because you have a wish, because you want them to be happy, right? But when they're suffering, they're not happy. So you have a wish to remove their suffering. It's not whether you can actually do it or not, okay? Because sometimes if they're sick, there's really, not much that you can do other than try to make them feel comfortable, giving them, trying to treat them. So, excuse me. When you have loving kindness for someone and that person undergoes suffering, then compassion naturally arises. That is why our compassion is limited. Limited by what? By our loving kindness. All right. But when it comes to great compassion, like the compassion of the Bodhisattvas, there are two things that are different. Okay. Number one is the agency. The Bodhisattva sees themselves as being responsible to remove the suffering of living beings. It's not a wish. Okay, they hold themselves responsible to remove the suffering of living beings. And the second one, so the first one is agency. That means they make themselves personally responsible, okay, to remove your suffering. Number two, the scope. All right, they are not, because they abide in emptiness and their compassion is all great. They are not limited by discrimination. Whereas we are, how you say, um, we may like our neighbor on the left, but we may not like our neighbor on the right. You know, our loving kindness and compassion is restricted by the discriminations that we layer on people that we meet. But the Bodhisattva doesn't have such shortcomings. So it can be someone on the far side of the world, someone who's they are not familiar with, or something like that. Their compassion is so great that it can encompass all living beings. All right? Okay. So that's great compassion, different from normal compassion. And Nagarjuna says the pure gift is, as the sutra has said. What sutra? The Mahaprajna Paramita Sutra. It says the gift to purify the mind, to adorn the mind, to acquire the supreme goal, to produce a pure thought capable of discerning what is favorable to a nirvana. Okay. Now this gift, okay, to purify the mind is how you say, it occurs in one sentence, but if you were to investigate what it means to purify the mind, oh my, there is 7 things that this purification of mind can be understood. One is the purification of morality or precepts. And when you can perfect this purification of the precepts, it leads to the purification of the mind. And when you can purify your mind or your thoughts, it leads to the purification of understanding of views. That means right view. Okay, it leads to right view. And right view leads to purity of overcoming doubt. That means you have no doubt of what's going on in this world, of the Buddha's teachings. Why? Because you have proper view, you have right view. And then from right view, it leads to the purity of knowledge and vision of what leads to nirvana and what does not lead to nirvana, like external paths. And then it leads you to the purity of knowledge and vision of progressing along the path. Okay, as you practice, you know what is proper practice and improper practice. And then that leads you to the purity of knowledge and vision. That means this is when you are free of samsara. Okay. Okay, so that's what that sentence means. All right. So Nagarjuna says, he continues, he says, the gift made with a pure mind is like a young flower, unblemished, of beautiful color and exquisite perfume. It is said that if the gods give with impure intentions, the brilliance of their palace decreases. But if they give with pure intention, the brilliance of their palace increases. So that the brilliance of the palace mirrors their intention. The act of giving does not perish even after hundreds of myriads of lifetimes. It is like a debt. Okay, it's funny that the debt here is used. When you owe someone money, it doesn't disappear. But here it is used in a positive way. Okay, so whenever you give a pure act of giving, or in fact, any karmic seed that you plant, and this looks at the wholesome side of karmic seeds, um, it doesn't get destroyed. Okay, you can be born hundreds and millions of times. The wholesome seed is always there, waiting to ripen. Okay, now the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, okay, or great Bodhisattva, must practice the perfection of wisdom if he wishes by means of one and the same morsel of food to satisfy all the Buddhas and their disciples present in each of the 10 directions in universes as numerous as the sand of the Ganges. Why am I sharing you this slide? It may seem to be on a different topic, but it's not. Okay, it has to do with a very small offering, physical offering, like one morsel of food. Okay, but it involves Buddhas of the 10 directions. Okay, you may ask, how can this be? Okay, we'll find out. So Nagarjuna says the Bodhisattva Mahasattva must practice the perfection of wisdom if he wishes by means of one and the same object. So now it's not just food, but it's garments, flowers, perfumes, necklaces, powders, incense, lamps, banners, parasols to honor all the Buddhas and their disciples. All right, so when you go to a monastery, or when you are sweeping, or when you're offering a flower, expand your mind, okay, your heart, not just to one Buddha, okay. At the very least, Shakyamuni Buddha, Amitabha Buddha, and Medicine Master Buddha, at the very least, okay. But if you can encompass other Buddhas, that would be better, okay. Then you might be asking how. How do you do that? Because that's actually the next question. Someone asked Nagarjuna a question. It says, to offer one and the same morsel of food to a single Buddha and his monks is already difficult. To say nothing of the Bodhisattva offering this morsel to Buddhas and their Sanghas in each of the 10 directions as numerous as the sands of the Ganges. Okay, imagine you may have just bowed the 10,000 Buddha jeweled repentance and you recited 10,000 Buddhas' names, actually more than 10,000 Buddhas. And then you want to make an offering to all of them. You already bowed to all of them. Now you want to make an offering to all of them. How do you do it? So the small-minded says, how? It's hard. Okay, just one Buddha and their Sangha is already so hard. So the answer is this. The merit of the offering resides in the intention and not in the thing. So it's not the flower. Okay, the efficacy is not in the flower. The efficacy lies in your heart. All right, in your intent. So it is with a great intention that the Bodhisattva offers this single morsel to all the Buddhas and all their Sanghas of the 10 directions. Whether they are far or near is unimportant. This is why all the Buddhas see this offering and accept it. You see that? Right? Everyone clear? You don't have to do all the work. Okay? All you have to do, all right, is in your heart, you have the intent. That's all you need to do. You don't have to go to every single Buddha land. You know, even one Buddha land, you don't even know that you're in a Buddha land right now. Okay? So all you need to do is your intent. Make sure your heart is pointed in the right place. Okay? And guess what? If your heart is proper, the Buddhas, okay, from the 10 directions, they will see your offering and they will accept your offering. So they have to do the work. Right? All you have to do, put your palms together, make the offering, and think. Okay, and your intent. Be sure of your intent. The Buddhas will do the rest for you. Isn't that easy? Right? You just stand in that spot, make the offering, and all the Buddhas of the 10 directions, depending on whether you can encompass them in your heart, okay, they will accept. Right? Your intent is already the act of offering. Okay, and they will have to accept. All right. Okay. Any questions so far? You all know this? How easy it is to make offerings to the Buddhas of the 10 directions? The only hindrance is your own heart. Okay. All right. Now we will go to the. Let me see. Where's my slide on the precept against non-harming? Okay. Here you go. All right. So the question was, okay, what happens if, say, you are in a situation where you have to defend yourself, all right? and you kill someone because of that. Does that break the precept against killing? Okay, first of all, first of all, why do we observe these precepts? Is to avoid such situations in the first place. Okay, so um, that's that. All right, but but for hypothetical situations, which most of us, I really wish that most of us will never find ourselves in. Okay, when is it considered that you have um, created an act of killing? Okay, there are 5 conditions. First, there has to be a living being, all right, whether human or animal. So, for example, a statue, you can break a statue saying, "Oh, I've just killed this statue." No, you don't create an offense of killing. Why? Because it's insentient, all right. Number 2, awareness. You are aware that it's a living being, all right. Number 3, you have the intent to kill. Number 4, you carry out the intent by appropriate means. There are a long list. Okay, you can use black magic, voodoo. You can instruct others to kill as long as you are um, involved. Okay, even the hand gesture. Let's say you're a king, all right, and you know that with a gesture of your hand that the prisoner or someone will be put to death, and you carry it out, you have committed the act of killing. All right. And number 5, as a consequence of this 4, all right, there's a death occurs. All right. These are the conditions under which an act of killing has occurred. So even, okay, for scenarios where, say, you see someone pursuing a thief, okay, someone has robbed a place and there's a whole group of people or the police are after him, and you know this thief personally, all right, and you don't like this person, and so when his pursuers ask you, have you seen this thief, and the persons who hates the thief say, yeah, actually I saw him run in that direction, or he's actually hiding under that rock or something, and because of that they find the thief and the thief gets killed, all right, you have actually committed the offense of killing. And all these acts of killing cannot be repented. Okay, you cannot repent for it. Now, what are exceptions? Okay, you kill by accident, that means you don't have the intention to kill. For the sutra gives an example of someone building a house. He was carrying a wooden beam on the ceiling, and the wooden beam slipped and hit a worker and killed the worker. The Buddha says, no, you have not, because it was not intentional, you have not created the offense of killing. But from now on, you have to be very careful when you do such work, the Buddha said. Yeah. And then you're unaware that it is a living being, and it is actually not a living being. Okay. And then there are certain instances where you carry out all the 5, okay, the 5 from the previous slide. But although you create harm to the living being doesn't die as a result. So this is known as an intermediate offense that can be repented. Okay, so the precepts is not, especially against killing, is not where you can try to find the spirit of the precepts. No, it is strictly no killing. That's all. No killing. No matter what happens, the Buddha says you shouldn't kill, even for self-defense. Why is that? Okay, that might sound very strange, okay, or to you trying to protect a loved one, and the world worldly morality justifies trying to protect your loved one or yourself. But the Buddha says no. Why? Okay, this sutra says it. This sutra is known as the Vyasana Sutra. Okay, this sutra, the Buddha says there are 5 losses. What 5? You lose your relatives, you lose your wealth, your health, your ethics, and your view. All right. Then the Buddha says, but it is not because of losing relatives or wealth or health that sentient beings, when their body breaks up after death, are reborn in the place of loss. That means you fall into the lower realms. You don't fall because you lose these 5 things. this relatives' wealth and health. What would make you fall? When you lose your precepts or your view, right view, that sentient beings, okay, when their body breaks up after death, are reborn in a place of loss, a bad place, the underworld, or the hells. So these are known as the 5 losses. So in other words, okay, self-defense, protecting your loved ones on the surface, all right, it may seem to be justified, but from a point of view of cause and effect, the Buddha says, well, you can argue it all you want, but at the same time, you're only creating your own offenses to be reborn in the lower realms. Okay? Now, converse, the Buddha says there are 5 blessings. What are the 5 blessings? Okay, you're blessed with relatives, with wealth, with health, with ethics, and with proper view. Okay? But then the Buddha says it is not because you're blessed with relatives, wealth, or health that someone, when they die, will get reborn in a good place or in the heavenly realm, but it's rather holding on to your precepts or holding on to proper views is the cause for being reborn in the heavens or in a good realm. Okay, so this is to remind us that precepts are so important that we shouldn't break them thinking that we are taking a gain in the long run. Why? Because in the long run, we might take a gain, we think, in the short run, but in the long term, we take a loss. Why? Because we lack understanding of cause and effect. So this is how, someone, let's say a young child who doesn't understand the world as good as an adult, they're very thirsty, and they see a bottle of liquid without knowing that it's poison, and they want to drink it. Why? Because they're thirsty. All right. But someone who is wise, someone who knows that, oh, you drink that, it will harm you. What would they do? They rather endure the thirst. Why? Because if you drink that poison, okay, you might go blind, or you might destroy your stomach from the inside out, or the rest of your life you're going to be in agony. You suffer and you wish you would die, but you can't die. Why? Because short term, all right, you didn't understand the long-term repercussions, and you were only looking from a very short term. Okay, so the Buddha wants us to practice because the treasures and happiness that waits for us far surpasses what short-term benefits this world can bring us. All right, so that's why Shifu says holding the precepts seem, or practicing, cultivating the way sometimes may seem to be a loss, but in the long run, you're actually uh, uh, benefiting. So I don't think I can finish the story in 6 or 7 minutes that we have left, but I'm going to try because this is a very, very interesting story that brings home this point. This is about Nanda, who is the Buddha's, sometimes they say that he is the Buddha's younger brother. Sometimes they say that he is the Buddha's elder brother or stepbrother. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The principle is still the same. His full name is Sundarananda. Okay, and he has a wife called Sundari. Sundari means beautiful and loving. Not for sure whether that was her real name or that was the name given to her because of her beauty. Both of them were very much in love. Okay, and they were kind of inseparable. Okay, but the Buddha knew that the timing, the conditions were right for Nanda. I will just use his short form name for Nanda to practice. Okay, so the Buddha wanted to trick him into becoming a monastic. Yeah, but it was very attached to the wife. It was very hard for him to do that. So when the conditions were right, the Buddha went to Nanda's house to get alms. And at that time, Nanda and his wife was together, but the Buddha manifested a brilliant light to let Nanda know that he was outside the house. So Nanda saw a light, golden light illuminating. So he said, that must be my brother, that must be my Buddha. So he knew he had to make offerings to the Buddha. He wanted to offer lunch to the Buddha. As he stood up to want to offer lunch, what happened? His wife held him back. Okay, she grabbed onto his clothes and didn't want to let him go. So he had to bargain with the wife to um, so that he could make offerings. But the wife was very smart. The wife knew that if she let him go, he would go off with the Buddha, because Nanda at the same time, although he was very much in love with his wife, he also liked the Buddha a lot. Okay, why? Because their karmic affinities go back a long, long way. So what did the wife do? Okay, there are a few versions of this story. Shufu's version in the Lotus Sutra, Shufu said, the wife said, okay, you can go, but you have to come back before my spit dries on the ground. So she spit on the ground. And she says, before this dries, you have to come back. In the sutra, there's actually a sutra that has this encounter. She put, you know how Indians, they have that mark between the eyes. So she took that paste and she dabbed Nanda on his forehead. And it says, you have to come back before this mark dries. It's called a tilaka. Yeah. So it says, before your tilaka dries, you have to come back. And if you don't come back before it dries, you will owe me 500 gold coins. That's how she threatened him to make sure he came back. Okay. So Nanda said, okay, all right. So he went out to offer food to the Buddha. And this is where there are different encounters. One encounter is, I think, also told by Shufu. As he approached the Buddha took a step back. And then he approached the Buddha took another step back. And this continued until Nanda found himself in the monastery in Grove. That's one version. The other version is when he came out, the Buddha was already gone. Ananda was holding his bowl. Nanda put the bowl in the Buddha's bowl, but then Ananda was instructed not to bring the bowl back. So Nanda had to bring the bowl back. Anyway, like I said, the principle is still the same. Nanda found himself at the monastery. And then after the Buddha finished eating, the Buddha asked him, he says, will you eat what is left in my bowl? And Nanda said, yes, please. And then the Buddha gave Nanda the bowl, and Nanda finished the food. Then the Buddha asked him, will you go forth? That means, will you become a monk? And that during that time, Nanda, in the presence of the Buddha, had more or less forgotten. Maybe he had eaten the food. Okay, he had more or less forgotten about his wife at that time, but not totally. So he said he will go forth. Now, I never knew this until I read this story today. Okay, the Buddha has a special power. It's not listed in the 10 powers of the Buddha, because the Shakyamuni Buddha, okay, had never gone against the wishes of his parents, the instructions of his parents, his preceptors, his teachers, or all his gurus in all his past lives. Okay, the Buddha had attained the state in which nothing he said will be opposed. That's what this sutra says. Okay, this sutra is in the Tibetan collection. It is known as, the number is TOH 57. Okay, so apparently the Buddha can say anything and no one will oppose him. So he used this special power on Nanda, which is why when he asked Nanda if he wanted to leave home, Nanda said yes, he cannot refuse, he will leave home. So Buddha told Ananda, okay, go arrange for Nanda's hair and beard to be shaved. But just as the barber was about to cut his hair, Nanda told him, he said, don't you know, soon I will become a powerful wheel-turning king. And if you shave my hair and beard, I will cut off both of your hands. So the barber was very frightened, but the barber left without shaving Nanda's head. Then Ananda told the Buddha what happened. So the Buddha went to Nanda and said, hey, will you not go forth? And Nanda unable to refuse, the Buddha said, yes, I will go forth. So what did the Buddha do? The Buddha himself took a vase, poured water on Nanda's head and was present. And then Nanda couldn't say no. So the barber shaved Nanda's head there and then on the spot. Yeah. But Nanda had a thought as it was being shaved. He said, okay, I will honor the Buddha for now and leave home. But to him, it was all temporary because he said, when night falls, I'm going to go home. Okay. So in the evening, all right, Nanda actually left the monastery. But his road was blocked by a deep chasm that the Buddha created to block him. And so then he saw in front of the road, the Buddha was actually standing there. He said, okay, all right, I can't go home now. Well, I miss my wife greatly, but I have no choice. I'll go home tomorrow. Yeah, because he said, okay, this is the exact wording in the sutra. The sutra says, now it is possible that I will die from just thinking about my wife. If I do not die, I will go tomorrow morning. That's how he dealt with the situation. So he passed the night in suffering and misery due to yearning for his wife. That's how much he was in love with his wife. So, of course, the Buddha knew what was going on in Nanda's mind. So the Buddha gave instructions to Nanda. He said, okay, Ananda, tomorrow in the morning, you shall make Nanda the caretaker of the monastery. So that's what Ananda did. So Nanda asked the Buddha, he said, okay, no, he asked Ananda, he said, okay, what does a caretaker do? So one of the duties was to sweep the monastery clean. And there are a lot of other duties like uh, not just sweeping, but prevent anything from being taken away, make sure what the monks need, they get, all those things. So having received those instructions, in the morning when all the monks had left the monastery to go on their alms round, Nanda started sweeping the, the monastery grounds. But just as he was, the last spot was about to be clean, the Buddha used his, the Buddha continues to play a trick on Nanda, and the Buddha made the whole ground full of rubbish again. Okay, so Nanda, after sweeping, thinking it was clean, he looked around and he said, oh, there's all this rubbish. So he started picking up the rubbish and he said, okay, once I pick up all this rubbish, I will quickly escape and go home. But because the Buddha created the rubbish picking could not end. As soon as he picked up some part of the rubbish would reappear again. So Nanda had another plan. He said, okay, since he probably knew the Buddha was playing with him. So he said, okay, you know what? Since I can't clear this place of rubbish, I'm going to close all the doors to the monastery. Yeah, so no one can see. And when all the doors, as soon as all the doors are closed, I'll make it my escape. So he started close. Okay, why did he want to close the doors? To prevent any robbers or thieves from robbing the monastery. Okay. But he couldn't close all the doors because the Buddha knew what was going on. So as soon as he closed one door, another door will open. Then he went to close that door, another door will open. Then Nanda reasoned, he said, well, you know, I'm going to be king. Apparently Nanda was next to inherit the throne. So he says, well, so what if a thief were to harm the monastery? You know, whatever damage they will create or steal, when I become a king, I'm just going to build 100,000 excellent monasteries, you know, as great as this one. So he thought, okay, that's his plan. So he tried to escape from the monastery, but he was smart. He didn't take the main road. Okay, he took a side road. And so Buddha appeared on the side road. You know, this is kind of like there's a story at Gold Mountain in San Francisco when Shufu was around. There was a monk, I can't remember his name. He wanted to eat blueberry pie or something, and he managed to get his hands on some pie, and then he escaped to the roof, thinking that Shufu will never go up to the roof. And when he went up on the roof, he saw Shufu there, and he tried to turn his back towards Shufu and walk and tried to eat the pie at the same time, and Shufu would follow him around. And so he got a nickname or something, Blueberry Pie. And then the next day, there's actually a photograph of Shufu. Someone make an offering of blueberry pie, and Shufu with a big, huge smile on his face, put the pie in front of this monk. Uh, if I can find the photograph, I'll share with you. If you all know what I'm referring to and you have the photograph, let me know. Okay, anyway, coming back to Nanda's story because we have run out of time. When Nanda saw the Buddha in the distance, he hid behind the tree. Okay, but what the Buddha did was the Buddha made the tree lift the branches up and reveal Nanda. So the Buddha called out to Nanda and said, Nanda, where are you going? He said, come with me. So the Buddha knew that Nanda was very attached to his wife. So the Buddha thought of another plan. He said, okay. He said, he told Nanda, he said, have you ever seen Mount Gandhamadana? Apparently, this mountain is in the Himalayan mountains. So the Buddha said, let's go on a trip. And if you haven't seen this mountain, let's go. So he told Nanda, grab the corner of my robe. Nanda held the corner of his robe, and the Buddha flew up into the sky. And then they arrived at this Mount Gandhamadana. And then there was a tree, and in the tree there was a blind, one-eyed female monkey. And this monkey saw the Buddha and looked right at the Buddha. And then the Buddha asked Nanda, he says, Nanda, do you see this blind monkey? Nanda said, yes. Then the Buddha said, if you were to compare this blind monkey to your wife, which one is more beautiful? Nanda said, his wife is a Shakya, that means of the Shakya clan. She's like a young goddess. That means to him, she is as pretty as she has heavenly beauty. Because her face is the best. She is peerless in the world. Therefore, if you compare her to this monkey, the monkey does not come close to being 100, 1,000, 110,000, or 100,000 of my wife. Any number, fraction, calculation, or comparison would be inadequate. Okay? He is invoking the language of the sutras. The sutra will say, the Mahayana sutras always say that, if someone were to offer, okay, we just talk about offerings, right? They say were to offer a flower to all the Buddhas in the 10 directions, okay? And compared to someone who has just brought forth the Bodhi resolve, okay? They say the act of offering a flower does not even compare like a fraction, 1,000, 100,000 of the person who has just brought forth the Bodhi resolve. So Nanda is using that kind of language. Okay, then the Buddha asked him next. He said, okay, we are here in the mountains. Now, have you seen the heavenly palaces? And Nanda said, no, I've never been to the heavens. So the Buddha said, okay, grab the corner of my robe again. And then the Buddha transported him to the heaven of the 33. That's where Lord Chakra is. And then the Buddha said, okay, go look around. And that's what Nanda did. He went to the gardens, he went to the different groves, he went to the places with flowers, with fruit, like ponds and pools. And then he went to the city of Sudarsana, which is the main city of the heaven of the 33. He heard all the beautiful heavenly music, the instruments, and then he went to the different palaces. And every palace he went, there were young gods and goddesses around until he found one palace. Okay. Edwin says the name of Shufu's disciple in the blueberry pie story is named Heng Chu. Okay, thanks, Edwin. Okay, and so Nanda went to he found a palace where there were only goddesses, no gods. All right, that means only female devas, only female goddesses. And he was like, hey, why is this palace different from all the other palaces? So he asked the goddesses, he says, why does this palace only have female goddesses? And the goddesses says, oh, well, we are waiting for the younger brother of the Buddha. His name is Nanda. He has left home under the Buddha. and he is practicing pure practices now. And when he dies, he's going to be reborn here, and you're waiting for him. So Nanda, having heard this, was very excited, was very, very happy, very, very, very happy, and he hurried to see the Buddha. That's how happy he was, although he was in heaven. So the Buddha asked him, "What did you see?" And he told the Buddha all the things that he saw. And the Buddha said, "Do you see the young goddesses?" And he said, "Yes." And then the Buddha asked him a very important question. He said, "If you were to compare the young goddesses to your wife, who is more beautiful?" Now, okay, he said, "Buddha, if I compare my wife with those goddesses, it will be just like comparing the blind monkey from the mountain to my wife. My wife does not come close. I mean, 100, 1,000, 110,000, 100,000, as good as the goddesses that are waiting for me." So previously, okay, his wife was of heavenly beauty. But when he saw what true heavenly beauty was, his wife was like a like a monkey compared to them. So the Buddha said, "Okay, well, these are waiting for you if you properly practice pure behavior." So the Buddha says, why the Buddha wanted to cure him of his attachment to his wife, because he thought his wife was the most amazing thing in this world. And after seeing the heavenly goddesses, that did the trick. So Nanda, hearing that if he were to go back, remain as a monk and practice, this would be his rewards. Right? Remember short term and long term? So Nanda now knew that short term wise, no, he's not going to get this long term reward. So he could put down the short term and get the long term rewards. So he was very happy. He made up his mind, okay, I'm going to stay in my in the monastery. I'm not going to go back to my wife, who now looks like a monkey to me, and I'm going to practice. Because why? I have all these goddesses waiting for me. Okay. So the Buddha had another plan. The Buddha instructed Ananda to tell all the monks, he says, don't sit with Nanda. Okay? Don't recite with Nanda, don't sit with Nanda, don't even hang your clothes on the same clothesline as Nanda. Don't put your begging bowl, anything. Okay? Just totally shun Nanda. So this made Nanda very, very sad. He began to notice that all the monks ostracized him, or didn't want to be near him. Then he went to Ananda, Venerable Ananda, who also shunned him. Then he told Brahma, he says, okay, all the monks want to shun me, is fine, but you are my brother. Why do you want to shun me? So Brahma told him that, well, it's because you are walking one path and I am walking another path. So we should avoid each other. So this made Nanda very surprised. He said, huh? What do you mean? What is my path and what is your path? Because he thought he was practicing pure behavior. So Ananda said, your pure behavior is due to a desire for rebirth in the heavens. That means his intention. Okay, is for heavenly rebirth. Whereas Ananda and the other monks practice for the sake of seeking nirvana. So when Nanda heard that, he became very unhappy and oppressed by sorrow. Why? Because in his heart, he wants to be reborn in the heaven, right? Because the goddesses are there waiting for him. And so he doesn't want nirvana. Okay, in his mind, he says, she's not ready. Okay, he's not ready to renounce yet. All right, so he practices for heavenly benefits. So no merit. Okay, no merit in his practice. He's practicing for blessings. So now, okay, the Buddha comes to him and says, hey, Nanda, have you ever seen hell beings? So from the heavens now, the Buddha wants to take him to the hell. So Nanda says, no. So the Buddha says, okay, grab my rope again. So Nanda grabs his rope and they go down to the hell realms, and then uh, Nanda sees all the different sufferings in the hells, and then he comes across a place where there's an iron cauldron. In Shufu's version of the story, there are two ghosts or two spirits supposed to be tending to the cauldron, but they're just resting. And there's no fire in the cauldron, and there's no oil boiling, and it's just empty. So in this version, okay, He also sees an empty iron cauldron. Okay, in this version, the iron cauldron or the giant pot is boiling. There's fire, but there's nothing inside. There's no beings inside. So although he was frightened, he asked the hell god. He says, what's going on? He says, every pot, every cauldron I see has a living being or living beings being boiled alive. But why is this empty? So the god told him, well, the Buddha's younger brother, Nanda, meaning him, okay, is right now a monk who's practicing to be born in the heavens. But his lifespan in the heavens is limited. So when he dies from the heaven, he's going to fall, and when he falls, he will fall into this cauldron. When Nanda heard this, of course, he was very afraid. He never realized that after his blessings of the heavens, this was actually waiting for him. And it was real. For Nanda, it was real. He could actually see it in front of him. Okay, and not only that, the guard who didn't know who he was telling him, you are going to be here next. Okay, Nanda, his name. Nanda is going to come next. Yeah. So he ran to where the Buddha was. And the Buddha said, well, have you had enough of touring the hell realm? And Nanda cried. He cried. Why? Because he told the Buddha, he says that I never knew. I never knew that practicing pure behavior to be reborn in the heavens has a limit. There's a flaw in it. It's what he thought was long term, now he saw as short term because there's another life waiting for him. So he says, therefore now, by thinking of seeking nirvana, this is what the Buddha told him. He says, by thinking of seeking nirvana, you must refrain from exerting yourself in delight in birth as a god in the heavenly realm. So the rest of the sutra is about the Buddha explaining to Nanda. He says that this whole wide world, okay, he says Nanda, your opportunity to leave home with the Buddha is extremely rare. Extremely, extremely rare. He said, you imagine the whole world is a sea. Okay, the entire world, okay, our earth, entire earth is a sea. It's a great ocean, and then in that ocean, there's one blind turtle. And there's a piece of wood with a hole being tossed about this ocean. Okay. And then he says, in every 100 years, the turtle, this is a famous simile, the turtle will come up for a single breath of air every 100 years. Every 100 years. And the chances of the turtle coming up for air through the hole in the wood, this wood is randomly tossed around in the sea. It says, what are the chances, right? It says, in the same way, Nanda, this human birth may not be found, nor the excellence of a favorable circumstance, which is to be able to become a monk under the Buddha. So it says, Nanda, it is very difficult for you to find this human birth, and also very difficult for you to find these favorable conditions. And the rest of the sutra, which is very long, the Buddha explains how the process of rebirth begins from conceivement in the womb right up to the birth, which is very, very fascinating because the Buddha goes into great detail. And now modern science has mirrors what the Buddha revealed 3,000 years ago. Okay. All right, so that's the end of the story of Nanda. And what's the principle? We get confused by short-term benefits, right? Without understanding the consequences of the long-term effects. So precepts are there to help us avoid difficult situations, okay, to prevent difficult situations, and its precepts exist for our long-term benefit, right? All right, any questions? Anyone? Anything to bring up? Sorry, I took 20 minutes. way past where we are supposed to end. Yeah, I'm very sorry, but it was such a fascinating story. Okay, we're going to do a transference of merit by half palms together. And today we are doing the Abhayagiri style, right? Okay. Through the goodness that arises from my practice with my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease and all harmful states of mind. Until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth, may I have an upright mind, may mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dharma. The solitary Buddha is my noble Lord. The Sangha is my supreme support. To the supreme power of all this, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. Okay, now let's do 3 vows to the Buddha. In respect to the Realm Master. Okay, I'm for everyone. And next week, okay, next week, there will be no lecture. I'll put it in the WhatsApp group, and I think there will be I will take a 2-week break. Okay, so the next 2 weeks there won't be any lectures, but if you have questions, you can post it to the WhatsApp group. Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone. Amitabha.
Amitabha.
Thank you, Dhamma